evening. I just want to say hi and welcome everybody. I'm Srikant Sastry, and I'm proud to be on the board of Digitech. And on behalf of Dr. Sajas Korea, our CEO, and the rest of the board of Digitech and the leadership, welcome to International Country Club and our Empathy Advantage event this evening. I think most of you are either taking dinner or about to take dinner, so help yourselves, please. And if you need anything that's not there, please let us know. I'm sure we can accommodate. We've set this up to be interactive. Through some pseudoscientific method, we've assigned people to tables. And I'm sorry, Vijay, very scientific method. Yes. And yes, this is a use case for assigning people to tables. And with that, a conversation or a topic to discuss at each table. So just as a conversation starter to make it interesting, enjoy that. If you don't have a question, I'm sure Digitech person can just raise your hand and we'll give you something interesting to talk about. Although there are so many interesting things to talk about these days, I know. But on a more upbeat basis. And after that, after dinner, maybe about 8:15, we'll have our featured speaker come up and say a few words. So welcome again, and thanks for being here.
I hope you're all enjoying the dinner. Continue to enjoy, move to the next course and all that. I think every table had a small topic of discussion. If you had an opportunity, we'll stop by, take 2 minutes at each table, continue to eat, continue to enjoy the dinner. And we'll take your perspective at each table for 2 minutes. And when that's done, we'll invite and have the pleasure of hearing from Gary, the keynote discussion for tonight. But before that, we'll just go around the table and check with you if you had the perspective to... I'll start here or table one? Table one, okay. Okay, let's listen to table one. What was your question?
Well, we were talking about disruptive, innovative technology that is going to impact, going forward, the economy and the businesses and individuals. So we talked about 2 technologies, actually. We talked about, obviously, something that everybody knows. It's the use of AI, quote unquote. We talked about a little bit about large language models, small language models, how Gen AI could be used in the cybersecurity ecosystem, how to enable businesses, how to make them, obviously have their deliveries faster, how to actually, optimize existing ecosystems, right? How to do it at scale. And the second technology we talked about was quantum computing, which is, and then, we talked a little bit about, how quantum computers are on the horizon, what they can do to aid the businesses, how to democratize technology and compute going forward, as well as we had a little bit of talk about post-quantum cryptography and how that is the future for how to protect our data from quantum computing attacks.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I think is an interesting topic is how traditionally human interaction conversations will go with AI. So individual therapy appointments, for instance, are people going to be doing that with an AI bot eventually? Or are you still going to be having therapist appointments where you go and see somebody in person and you talk about why your life sucks or what you really want to be doing or how you can overcome the obstacles that you feel like are presented to you in your life? I think I can see, and Hollywood has done this. Her is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go and watch it, where humans develop very personal relationships with computers, only through talking to them. And I'm curious about how that will evolve as we go through this, because now you're able to have conversations, and there's a lot of research about children under 18 who are developing relationships with chatbots, ChatGPT, et cetera. I think it's possible that we can do this where you don't need to go see a human being in person, where you can talk about your problems, but also that scares the hell out of me too. So I think that's an important topic that we need to explore.
We were just talking about wine and beer, so I don't know. I've been telling him, it's not IPA, it's just, just a beer. But seriously, we've been talking about, LLMs, the limitation of, LLMs. Basically, most of the data is, Western focused. So if you're going to do AI, how is it going to translate to other cultures, other regions, whatnot? Because every culture has its own unique LLMs per se.
Right.
So if you're taking, ChatGPT 4 or 5 is basically, 20 years of, LLM. Now they kind of, updated to another 5 years, 2025. But that's not enough. If you're going to, have a, AI localized to Middle East, Far East or whatever, so there is not much data there. And also, social media came into, those areas only recently, relatively. Meta maybe, Facebook maybe 20 years old, but that's not being used in the other areas only in the recently. So there are a lot of challenges. So you cannot extrapolate, Western algorithms, Western, ML AI to implement, throughout the world. So that's a very challenging topic. So that's basically, what we were talking about because I think Digitech Services Dubai, yeah, oh, there he is. So he didn't like our topic, so he went back. So, so that's a challenge, right? With the AI, there are limitations, and also AI is based upon the data, which is finite. But when you start using human brain, it's infinite.
Yeah.
It's a more logic-driven. I don't think AI can do the logic.
Right. Yeah. Once I got curious with similar kind of question, I went checked on some of the traditional philosophical thinking of from India. I was surprised to see Gemini came back and quoted certain authentic work, including certain colloquial quotations. It was very surprising that it was able to do that, and primarily because a lot of those content is probably like in the central library of how
Maybe Wikipedia, right?
Yeah, it is picked up from there. But yeah.
So I think the challenge is all these XAI, all these things, they're getting the personality of, the founder.
Yeah.
Okay? Because just like, your child, is going to have the personality of your parents. So how you develop the algorithms, it really depends upon, how the AI model is going to come out with the right answer.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions for this team?
Lots of it is right now, of course, sucked out of the Western information. But do you know something? By 2027, the LLMs are going to suck up all existing data that's available, and they're going to have to depend on synthetic data. Something for you to think about. Well, it all depends upon who's creating the data.
We didn't really read the question. We saw the topic future focus, which is what we had been talking about, and more from a more traditional sense. We talked about a few of us really thinking that the Gen Z, our kids, don't really understand their boomer grandparents or their Gen X parents and our stories and what brought us here and enabled them. And that for the future really to be bright, they really need to understand and learn from the experience of those who brought them to where they are. Many of them are very advantaged now. And so some of us have talked about how we need to write our stories. And that's a real imperative. I'll share here, I'm blissfully semi-retired. I don't know what that means. No, Saji's like, no, work, no, I've got a job for you. But But I guess what I'm saying is that there's, at least for me, and I think that my friend here, Venu has said the same thing, his kids have said the same thing, that our kids don't really know where we came from and what we went through, even as immigrants here. They appreciate it to a point, they love us, they're good, respectful young people doing good things, but they don't really know what we all went through. Not that it was all horrible. I mean, I think about all the anecdotes in my mind. Many of them are just hysterical. I mean, really funny. Movie worthy even, maybe. If I were to write a script, maybe. But I digress. So I think in terms of future focus, it's hard to understand the future if you don't appreciate the past. And that's really, I think, where we came from. I don't know.
But getting back to the question of our table, it's that if you could redesign one key process to in your industry from scratch, what would it be and why? Should we talk about it? Yeah. No, honestly, I think from my standpoint, I just got thinking, we didn't really discuss this. This whole notion about customer experience and everything else. With the advent of AI, I think that's the one that really has to be redesigned, in my opinion. Today, a lot of customer experience is focused heavily on what you call as interviewing people and a lot of data collection. Instead, it has to be a much more, I guess, indirect, for lack of a better word, being able to look at data that's sitting all over the place and being able to bring intelligence into customer experience. So I just wanted to make it a little bit more heavy than what he said, more from a technical perspective. So there you go. Anybody has any comments? Venu? With all the bread that you ate, anything that you're going to say?
I'm definitely going to second what Srikanth has said. What I want to add there is, they definitely, our kids and grandkids definitely know the value that we are bringing to the table, but how they want to bring into their lives is something I think they are missing there. Because if we can correlate that, how can we do that? We can do it and explain them to them. That would take a long way to the grandkids and the upcoming generations. This is how I'm thinking.
Thank you.
But on a more serious note, certainly great comments, Srikanth, in terms of the whole experiential thing. Too late, is it? Okay.
How can we transform the abundance of data into actionable wisdom without overwhelming the decision maker? So we talk about whittling down the data set to answer the question. And an example is maybe you can require of the asker to ask a very specific question to get the answer, but if they could do that, then they would already have the answer probably, right? So then they ask a simple question. Where do I go for food tonight? And okay, there's 1,000 restaurants. What do you want to do? You haven't helped them. So you can ask questions. The questions should be pointed based on their history, what they've done, what their preferences are. That's one route, right? Come down to a smaller set and give them a couple of choices. But then we also discussed getting outside of your norm also of saying, well, okay, I don't want to go to the same 3 restaurants. Don't give me exactly what you think I want. Give me an option also to say, no, wipe that out and just take me in a different direction. So you have to, you're presenting choices within choices, right? But you're using logic and an AI to kind of like steer the person without steering them, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Okay.
We went back to the government piece. So we talked about how government is being changed and transformed because of the advent of AI and how it's going to look different both internally and externally, right? We as customers of the government, right, the largest corporation in the world, our federal government that is, how services are delivered to the public, it's going to be transformed through the advent of AI. Just the nature of how the government goes and acquires what they need to buy to be able to perform services to the government or to support their mission is all changing dramatically. So I think that the message in this is that, you know, for companies like us that are here now at this time, we have an enormous opportunity because the largest company in the world, the federal government, is going to be adopting AI in everything they do. And this can only complement and vice versa the work that we're doing globally and commercially, because the things that we are doing commercially spill over into the public space, of course. So that's what we talked about. And you know, for a company like ours, you know, understanding the America's AI Action Plan, how it translates that policy and the policies underneath it translate into opportunities for us is going to be critical as we execute our strategy. Yeah, that's really the meat of our discussion, and it's an enormous place to be at this stage in our time. Yeah.
Do you see any examples of that already?
Well, the government's already using AI to evaluate contractors, right? So, you know, when you submit a bid to the government, a lot of the contractors are obviously using AI to build compelling, compliant, competitive content, right? Winning proposals and using all the tools that AI affords them in doing that. Well, the folks that are receiving those bids are using AI to evaluate what you sent in. And, you know, the evaluation criteria, the scorecards, everything that they go through in terms of all of that is all being driven by AI internally. So already seeing a lot of that activity. It's reflected in the procurement cycles that are being shown to us today in terms of what solicitations are coming out on the street, how long it's taking to get source selection done and awards placed. That will only continue, you would think, to be streamlined through the advent of AI.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Thank you.
I'm sitting arguably the best storytellers in the world, Pretty Woman fame, and our conversation is more about life, purpose-driven life. Why we do what we do, and what is the noble part. In fact, in conversation I said, I'm in a rush, maybe I'm the second half of the bell curve. He stopped me saying that. Then he told me a story about somebody leaving at 156. When he was 75, he said only halfway through. So he's leaving the message saying that the organization we create with a reason, and we talked about the blessing we have in our lives, and why we spend time here, why we create this kind of organization, why we create opportunity, because we have a purpose. We talked about children and what we can create the next generation in terms of what we could do. And we also talked about organizations, not just about making money. It's way beyond that. So that's the whole intent of what we do. And he was thanking, and that reminded me to see that we stay on course. People get carried away with success. So that's a very good reminder, and it's on record. He's recording it, that Digitech tomorrow become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, but our core values doesn't compromise. Be in the valued, be a provider to the society. That's what we should be creating. By the way, he came for the same reason. He went to our website. We met me before. He knows very close to Dr. Ananda. I know Gary before. So he said, you are on a mission. I'm here to amplify you and support you. So the whole purpose of AI, whole purpose of technology is basically an enabler to make a difference to society. And we inherit the planet on a certain level, leave it a delta improvement later part of the way. That's what we talked about.
See, what emerging technology do you believe will create the biggest competitive edge for the business in the next year? Only two of us, so we had a quick conversation. So essentially what will happen is AI will be integrated into all the application for the business, right? So it will be highly efficient system we are going to see in a year or two. And agentic AI, right? For different aspects of the business, there are different agents that will be created, and it will be automated to a great extent. Then predictive analysis, we are seeing it as a big area where, advanced analytics will come and
lot of your data, including the interpretation, data analytics and the interpretation, that will be AI driven. And then world is becoming complex digitally, so you need cyber security, maybe zero compromise security framework, etc. AI is going to play a big role there. Then maybe from an augmented reality and extended reality perspective, you may have immerse training and all those things, even college campuses, right? I think training is going to change. It will be an immersive experience. So essentially AI is going to touch all parts of your life or our life, and starting with integrating the things into workflow of various business workflow, automating it, starting at that point and then going through all this stuff what we talked about. Thank you.
Thank you. So, the much awaited session now. So, may I invite Gary? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Smith. Our conversation was fabulous because I believe that, making money is a wonderful thing, yes, but it's not everything. And the fact that this is such a purpose-driven company and that you have both a collective, my perception is that Digitech has a collective purpose, but that you also each have individual mantras, missions, mandates. And I've read yours more than once, and it inspires me. So I love what you're doing. And I think the area that you're in is so fascinating, as witnessed by some of your conversations. AI is beloved by some, absolutely feared by others, misunderstood by most. But it is about making people achieve their greatest capacity, realizing their dreams, if you really strip it down. I mean, I just came from I have a very, very eclectic life. I couldn't have dreamt it for myself, but it's just fabulous. So I work with NASA. I put on an event that we just came from. It ended last night. And during that event, I moderated a panel, and it was probably the soft anatomy of the whole experience. It was called Claiming Tomorrow: Why Space Security and Storytelling Matter Now. And on the panel, I chose people who come from the world of gaming, world building, immersive experiences. Because I think that storytelling is really underneath it all what connects us. And I have to just confess that one of my lines during it was, that Hollywood leans very dystopian, yes? A lot of our content is very much, it kind of leans to the dark side, Anyway, the line was very simple. Either, Hollywood's given us a couple of choices. Either we conquer Mars, or we get eaten by our own AI. And we were there to propose a third option. And you're the third option, right? So it's really, thank you for having me. Dinner was delicious. And I love having met and had some conversation with some of you. I guess I would just say that, first of all, your personal mission, Dr. Saju, about scholarships and the number of lives you want to impact, this will get me into any room. People like you are very attractive to me. So, and I sense that about all of you. So I can tell you about myself, but that's kind of boring to me. Okay, all right. Well, so I'll give you a short history. Here's the simple truth. When I was young, I was painfully shy. I also did not see where I fit in the world at all. I couldn't figure it out. So I was very, I guess I would say I was an introvert. I lived inside of story, inside of books, and I grew this love of storytelling. And that's sort of been the silver thread that's connected most of the choices that I made over the course of my life. The first choice that I made I went to UC Berkeley undergrad. And coming out of school, I didn't know what to do. We didn't have the word entrepreneur back then. This was like in the Pleistocene era. And we didn't know about entrepreneurship. And I didn't want to go to work in corporate America. I didn't want to go into academia. So it was very unclear what to do. But I was introduced, coincidentally, to a foundation. I was in San Francisco, and I was introduced to a foundation in an underserved community, a black community, called Bayview Hunters Point. And this foundation had very few funds, but what they did was it was a holistic approach to solving the problems of a very beautiful but beleaguered community. So they had job counseling and drug counseling and social workers and a criminal defense unit that represented the indigent adults of the geography in lieu of the public defender. And I, being a very naive and romantic guy, said, that's what I want to do. Underneath that was this idea that since I had no idea what I was supposed to do in the world, if I went to law school, at least people would respect that I speak an adult language. So I went to law school to become a criminal defense lawyer. I did that for a couple of years. And I'm sure some of you could relate to this. It was one of the greatest, most brilliant chapters of the book of one's life, but it was a terrible mismatch for my temperament with that career. So it was a very harsh, very dark world. It was emotionally draining on a daily basis. And so, long story short, I went to my dad, who was my hero, and I didn't want to disappoint, and I took him out of his place of business and said, we have to talk. And this is the blessing of having a great parent. And I was very nervous, so I said to him, Dad, I just wanted to confess to you that I'm quitting my job, but I'm not quitting a job, I'm quitting a career. And he had this huge smile on his face. So I was expecting a lecture, and he's smiling. And I said, I don't understand, why are you smiling? He said, because I don't see that you've been happy. And I think you should go find in life what excites you, and whatever that is, go chase that. So here I have a father from another generation who's giving me permission to dream and follow my dream. Long story short, I made my way down the coast to LA because I thought, well, if I want to be a storyteller, I should really go to LA and make film. And so that's what I did. I went to LA. I really had no idea how uneducated I was about the opportunity or the business of film. Long story short, I founded a literary management company. I took young directors, unknown directors and writers, and I eventually, the first 3 years were just horribly embarrassing. But after that, I figured it out, and I broke a lot of people into the business who went on to have extraordinary careers. And at one point, the writers went on strike. It shut production down, film and television, and I saw that as an opportunity for one of my young writers to dust off a script. He wanted to direct, I wanted to produce. Strike was going to go on for a year. We had plenty of time to figure out how not to make a film. And that's what we did. We went off and made a no-budget film, and I got the bug. And then I immediately disbanded my company in pursuit of becoming a full-time film producer. So anyway, that's sort of the trajectory. Then I went on and made a couple of independent films. I ended up making a studio film, Pretty Woman, as many of you know I made. That was, oddly, that was my first studio film, major studio film. So, my name's Goldstein, but I must be Irish. Anyway, so that, and it's the kind of thing that you can't even imagine. To have a story like that live, and it's, what is it now? It's 25. So we're 35 years down the road, and it's still playing in every country in the world, giving joy to new generations. And it's really a privilege to be a part of that. I had other films that I won't bore you with, but they were, they did fairly well. And what was interesting is recognizing that Hollywood has a big reach. So having film titles associated, no one knew the name Gary Goldstein, no one really cares. But when you say the name of a film that they know and they like, that opens doors. And so it's been a real gift in my life because it's introduced me to a lot of people that I might not otherwise have met. For example, I briefly partnered with Cyril Ramaphosa. I wanted to form a business in South Africa. I fell in love with the country. And I was able to meet Cyril, who was one of the gentlemen imprisoned on Robben Island for 27 years with Mandela et al. He founded the workers' union. And he was at the center of the negotiating table when the apartheid regime turned power over to the ANC. Anyway, so I had an opportunity to meet people like that, and it's just been a really interesting journey. That said, I would be dishonest if I didn't tell you that the culture of Hollywood and the business practices of Hollywood leave a little bit to be desired. So at some point, the beginning of COVID, quite frankly, is when I thought this is and I know a lot of people suffered, so I mean no disrespect, but for me it was a gift. It was a gift to be introspective, to take time out, to walk on the beach where I live every morning and just think about, what do I want? What do I really want to accomplish in my life? The world's been really good to me. I had a good family, a great education. I had this wonderful tour of duty as a lawyer, as a film producer, et cetera. But there was some greater calling, some sense that there was something more, something bigger. And I decided that I wasn't that clever, so I had to partner with the universe. So I asked the universe, there's a bug on my neck. That's my trained pet. I brought him with me. Oh, okay. Anyway, so in all sincerity, I couldn't see myself, as many of us can. It's hard to sell yourself, right? It's hard to see ourselves honestly the way other people see us. And I just couldn't figure out what next. What would that look like? So I decided that I would have this private conversation with Source, with the universe, with God, call it what you will, and let the universe know how I wanted to feel, not what it would look like in the marketplace of man. Because I couldn't figure out. But I just wanted more significance. I wanted to have more impact. I wanted to do things that would sort of live at a legacy level and about which I would feel proud at the end of my life. And significance was one of the key words in the cocktail, freedom. There were a number of words, but it was really about upgrading from Hollywood to something that aligned with my values, with my romantic view of things, the fact that I'm a devout optimist, that I really wanted to help people in some way. Well, it turned out that along the way, I had started investing modestly in a number of young technology companies. I was fascinated by technology. I think it's like, there's this line that the better the technology, the more human we become. And I believe that 1,000%. And it's one of the things I admire about what you people do, because I think that's what the net result is going to be. But I said, this is how I want to wake up. This is what I want to feel. I wake up excited every day. But I wanted to feel more significant. I wanted to be in the company of people from whom I'm very curious. I want to be learning. No matter what I'm doing, I want to be learning something new every day. So I invested in these companies. I won't bore you with what they are at the moment. But when I did that, it's just the way I am. I just had to know the chairman and the CEO and the COO and the CFO and so on. And the more I talked with these people, the more excited I got. And the more grateful I was that I'd made the choice to invest in these companies. And at one point, the chairman of one of the companies, we were on the phone for like an hour. And he said, I want to talk with you and the CEO next week. Are you available? I said, of course I'm available. Next week comes, we have a phone call. Toward the end of the call, they say, we have a question for you. Would you like to be on our advisory board? I said, oh my gosh, absolutely, yes. If you answer me one question first. And the question's really simple. Why me? I didn't quite get it. Anyway, bottom line, they answered the question beautifully. It made perfect sense, and I agreed. And that sort of that cast the die. And I started recognizing that, you know, what I do natively, some of the things that I'm really good at that I didn't really acknowledge up until then is exactly what they needed or wanted or perceived that they wanted. It was just like connecting invisible dots, being really good with strategy, seeing opportunities that they didn't see for themselves. And certainly working on the storytelling component, like telling a more compelling version of the mission of that company and their why. And that's kind of what I do today. You know, I have, like I said, I have a handful of companies that I advise. I work with this gal at NASA, who's the head of technology for all of NASA, which is pretty cool. She's an awesome human being. And so we're putting on an annual summit. We're going to take that international next year. We're raising a venture fund so that we can do more good, so we can solve more problems, help more people. And that's kind of it. You know, bottom line, storytelling's everything. You know, it's like, I'm fascinated by people and by what they do in the world. And if I can help in some way, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So it's number one, come back to the center. It's an honor to be here. I love these gentlemen that I've come to know pretty well, and now I'm grateful to be meeting you guys and gals. So yeah, I've lived a very blessed life, and I think it's just beginning. So yes, you're barely at mid-age, you know, like not even, so you can't talk about being on the downslope. There's so much to be done, and we're needed at this time, those of us who have the luxury of being capable of helping others. Anyway, thank you for having me. I would love some questions. I'd rather hear from you than listen to myself. Pardon? I spend very little time. I really don't spend my days trafficking in Hollywood anymore, but I do love storytelling. And there's a couple of projects that there's one feature film that I'm developing. It's a true story. It's something that I've read, the first version of the script I read 15 years ago, and I've been in love with it and haven't forgotten it and can't get it out of my system. It's a true story. It's set in the 1930s in Italy, in Europe, sort of sandwiched between, you know, this very dark global depression and the rise of fascism. And at that time, the only light, the only hope, the rock gods of that time were the early Formula One race drivers. And of them, the Italians were the best, and of the Italians, the best was a gentleman named Tazio Nuvolari. And he was too old to be driving. He was a very short guy, not particularly good looking, but a really fancy dresser. And he was obsessed. He started, here's what obsession looks like. If you're Tazio Nuvolari, you start as a motorcycle racer. And on a given day, you're riding the motorcycle and you crash and you break both your legs. You have two legs in a cast. And the next day you go out and you race again wearing two casts. He was insane, right? When he started racing cars, he had a patron, Enzo Ferrari, when he was a young man before he only had a dream of having a car company one day. He drove an Alfa Romeo, and I'll sort of jump to the conclusion. It's 1935, we're in Berlin at the German Grand Prix, 300,000 live audience, the Third Reich in full regalia, the world media present, and they're there to prove that they are superior, period. What they had done was the Reich had taken all of the four major German car companies, put them under one secret roof, to develop the car of the future, which they did. They developed a car called the Silver Arrow, and it looked like a bullet. It was a silver bullet. It had 100 to 150 horsepower more than any other car that existed. And all through the year-long racing circuit of that year, no one won a race except the Germans. No one could beat them, not even close. And in fact, no one thought they could be beaten. So come to the German Grand Prix, and here's Tazio in his older Alfa Romeo against these 10 Ariane-driven, speedsters. And hold that thought. Prior to that, he was out racing one day and it started to rain. And he jammed on the brakes and he went into what we call a drift. And he thought he was losing control of the car, except that the car literally slingshotted and gained power and came out straight into the straightaway. And suddenly went, oh my God, he'd never experienced that. He practiced that and made it an art form. He was the first driver really to make that a strategy. In the German Grand Prix that year, it started out, the course was dry, the track was dry. And then a third of the way through, it started to rain. And the track in Berlin had more turns than any other racing track in all of Europe. It was renowned for that. So between the number of curves and the rain, Tazio got very excited. And he started slingshotting past cars, passing more cars. And if you'd seen him race, he's a bit of a nut job. He's slapping the outside. Back then, there were no roll bars. You had a leather helmet. It was a death trap. But he's racing around, and he's slapping the outside of his car like it's a horse, telling it to move faster, right? Anyway, long story short, because of the drifting that he'd figured out, he was able to actually beat and humiliate the Third Reich. He beat the German team. This was the year before Jesse Owens embarrassed the Third Reich again, right? Anyway, people who are race aficionados say it was the greatest race ever driven or ever will be driven. I mean, technology is so advanced that it's a different sport now, of course. But there are themes throughout the movie that are beyond racing. It's because he was a flawed guy. He was a guy who needed to be redeemed. He was not yet the great father he should be. He was not the great husband he should be. He was apolitical when he should have been a little bit more aware of what was going on. There's a thriller element to it. There's a human element to it. There's the racing element to it. It's just a beautiful, and it's all true. It's just a fabulous story with great themes about man being more important than machines, beware of fascism, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one project that I'm working on. And it's really the only film that I'm developing right now. The only other ones that I'm in discussion on are, I would say, either more documentary or docu-series. Sometimes you just film things not knowing what the format's going to end up being, to be honest. But one of the companies, for example, that I'm an advisor to, an investor and an advisor to, is in the medical radioisotope field. And the most desperately needed isotope is called actinium-225. It's the cure for cancer. It's the magic bullet. And so we're partnered with Mayo Clinic. We've proven we've actually produced actinium, which is very, very hard to do. It's the decay daughter of radium-226, which is phenomenally radioactive, scary material. But we've done it at scale inside a nuclear reactor, a commercial nuclear reactor, a PWR. So we're going to be delivering within a year to patient number 1 through Mayo. And I think it's going to change the game for good. Mayo has said on the record, the head of nuclear medicine for all their 3 US campuses has basically said, we will jettison all traditional protocols. Chemo's out the window. We'll triple down on actinium. Up till now, there hasn't been a proper supply. And number 2, it's mostly about the accessibility of radium, finding it. And then secondly, understanding no one's been able to figure out how to produce at scale actinium. DOA's has in their vault most of the radium in the country. And they came up with 5 techniques. Many private sector companies adopted these techniques and none of them have worked. So no one's really been able to produce this stuff, not even enough for medical research, let alone for commercial application. So our company is actually, to me, it's the most exciting thing I've been a part of in my life. Because if we can end global suffering and cancer, that's not a bad day. And I believe that we will get there, and we'll get there within the next couple of years. And the other benefit of that, by the way, is the company was conceived of as a nuclear fuels company, a clean energy company. But nuclear in this country is still a dirty word. People are very, they're still living as if it's 50 years ago, at a time when we said nuclear is great for bombs, not good for energy. And had we made the opposite decision, we might have a very different set of circumstances on our hands. But anyway, it's exciting as hell to be a part of a company, be a cell in the body of a story as big as cancer. And I believe that we're going to get there, and holding a good thought. Anyway, but just to finish, so the bottom line is, there are things like that in my life that I see and I go, oh my God, what more poignant, amazing, magical human tales are there to capture on film? Things like these people whose lives are being saved. When I met the physicist, the CEO, for the first time, he was showing me the film of a gentleman who was around 60, I believe. And he had stage 4 prostate cancer. And that prostate cancer had metastasized throughout his whole body, and the film was solid black. And he was not just stage 4, he was in hospice, and they were saying, you have days, not weeks to live. He got 3 injections of the actinium that I'm describing, and I saw his film from, I think it was a handful of months later, and it was sheer white, except for his spine and his organs. He was cancer-free, he was an athletic guy, he got back in shape, he's still alive, he's doing amazingly well. And this is the opportunity. I mean, to me right now, it's such a blessing to be alive on this planet right now. Technology is the greatest thing ever, and the faster it accelerates, the better, for those who know how to use it, for the benefit of the greater population. Anyway, I'm getting carried away.
Yeah, if you could speak to how have you seen recognizing human potential capability and how it transforms over your career, that will be of great help. How do you see the potential for human potential to transform? How do you look at human potential? How can it transform? And how does it happen over your career? If you could address to that.
I think I'll start with the punchline. I think we've forgotten who we are. I think we failed to remember what we're capable of as individuals and as a human community. And it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about technology. I think it frees us on a number of levels, and refocus us on the things that truly matter. We're tribal, we're social creatures, and we see that, or at least I see, and I think most of us do, the world, at least our culture and many other cultures, compared to when I was a kid growing up, we're unrecognizable. We've become more separate from one another, the nuclear family, the amount of respect or regard that we have for the institutions that make up our social contract, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the Boy Scouts, whether it's the Oval Office or the Supreme Court. I just had a flashback. Earlier this afternoon, I was at a place called the Florida House near the Capitol. And I walked upstairs and I looked out the window, and there was the Capitol, and next to it was the Supreme Court, and next to that was the Smithsonian. And I just was stupefied. I'm a kid from LA. I don't see these things. I was actually, I was almost paralyzed. It was like, I remember who we are looking at these buildings, who we're supposed to be, who we were when I was growing up. An aspirational community, a true community to begin with, but an aspirational one with respect for certain institutions and for strangers and for the role of these institutions in our lives, and that it was ours to contribute. It's the old JFK line, right? And things have changed, but I think there's an opportunity. I'm a true optimist, and I think where we're going is a much better place than where we've been. And I think that technology plays a huge role in that. It frees us. It allows us to remember our values and to figure out who we really choose to be and what we choose to do in this precious time that we have here. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all. Is there something else? Is that what you wanted to hear? What are you? Yeah, I mean, look. We're a very funny animal. You know, in the Great Migration, you don't really ever see a zebra or a giraffe stop and let the herd move on because they have self-doubt. Do I belong in this migration? Should I go? We're a funny animal. I think most people. I don't think I know, because I've interviewed tons of people over the course of my life. And I'm just a curious guy. I ask a lot of questions. And I think that it's the vast majority, it's the rare exception to the rule that someone really understands who they are, values themselves, believes in themselves. Like, I'm going to just go on a dalliance. I went to a dinner party years ago, and the host asked a couple of questions at the table, and he said, number one, what superpower, no matter how real or fantastical, that you do not possess, would you like to possess? And the second question is, what superpower do you truly own? What do you manifest so naturally that you don't even think of it as a superpower? But it's a gift. And as soon as he said that, it's like both answers came to me before he'd finished the question. And the answer to the first one was, I'd like to spend the rest of my days walking the planet, hugging absolutely every stranger I encounter, but in the moment of that hug, the other is permanently and forever possessed 100% of self-belief. I wish to God people could believe in themselves more than they do, that they could see themselves for who they are and the impact they have on others. I think most human beings have a lesser story about who they are. They question their value. The irony is, as soon as you really take the time to ask someone about their life story and you pull it out of them, everybody has the most it's like miraculous story after miraculous story, the most amazing things that they take for granted. They don't see themselves. I think the issue is how do we reflect back to others, which we're not very good at. How do we reflect back to others who they are, how they impact us, what they mean to us? What do we think of when we think of them? What's our experience of the other? And if we could be honest, I think it would change people forever. It takes such little amount of experience to alter the course of a human life. If someone believes you once in a meaningful way, it alters your trajectory forever. So that's a human issue, not a technology issue. I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask, what advice would you have for a young person? You know, how you're speaking of idealism, doing something good in the world. There are kids out there who graduate, they don't want to work for certain companies because they don't like the CEO, what they do, how they make money, what their values are. To them, that is more important than actually, that is not important. What is more important is contributing, making use of what skills they have learned to give back and making the world a better place. So for young people like that, sometimes I think they feel very disillusioned. They don't know what to do or where to go. And all the media and things that they consume are just negative. out there. So it sounds like your journey was so different. Would you have some advice for a young person out there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, I think, every generation says that, but the young, the youth are our future. And if they're disillusioned, they have cause to be. And if they want to stick to their guns and live into their values and hold out until they find the right environment for themselves, I'm all for that. I think the disconnect is, I meet a lot of younger people who they're passionate, they know what they'd like to do, they just can't see how they connect to it. And so I think that, one of the keys is to make them realize that not all they have to do, that undervalues it. That they have the capacity and the right, that everybody's reachable, that we're all human beings. And if they had the gumption to actually sit down and think, who are my heroes? Who's written the books that I admire? Who are the teachers that I've had that I admire? Who do I see out in the world as entrepreneurs that I admire? And make a list, literally, spreadsheet it, and then reach out to them. And reach out to anyone who will answer the phone on the other end. Could be the assistant to someone, doesn't matter. That's how that's how I broke into Hollywood. I knew nothing about the film business. I knew how stupid I was. And then I had no relationships and no knowledge, and I was unemployable, really. And I just decided I didn't care, that I wasn't going to let that stand in the way. And I just called everybody I could, and I befriended their assistants. I grew my whole career on the basis of reaching out to Francis Ford Coppola. It was one of the reasons I moved to LA. His early films inspired the hell out of me. And when I called American Zoetrope, back then there was no internet, and no one would call me back. But I just realized that if I could just keep dialing and asking elevating, giving a raise to the assistant, and saying, look, I'm not calling for your boss. I don't want to speak to your boss. I want to speak to you. Because you had to beat out 50, 100 people to get that job. You must be really something special. What's your trajectory? What's your greatest lesson? Look, I'm just off the turnip truck. I'm going to be really honest. I don't know what I'm doing. I know what my dream is, but I'm not sure how to get there. But I know that you are smart. And if you have 3 minutes, I'd like you to be my 3.7-minute mentor, right? And have fun with it. I think people by their nature are good. And people by their nature want to help other people. And especially if you make it easy for them and you're not needy. You're honest, you're authentic, you're charming, and you're humble. So my advice to the younger people is, you can speak to anyone you want. You might have to start with their assistant. And you might be surprised to not have to talk to their assistant. And show up, go to events, go where you're going to meet the people that are in line with whatever your dream is. Just go, show up. Because, I've done that and I've had that happen to me. So I think that they shouldn't compromise their values so much as they should get bold. Believe in themselves, start writing about what they want to do, share that story. Talk to people, let people know what you care about. The right people will, respond to it in time. Anyway, yes. You're welcome.
So,
thank you.
A couple of questions. You were talking about the Italian racer. So when is that movie coming out?
Yeah, if I were a magician, I'd answer that. I have no idea. It
So-
takes a very long time, if ever. For the number of movies that I've made versus relative to the number of films I've developed, it's a sad story, right?
But it's a very interesting story. So my second question is, now we are in the AI, topic. So I think sometime about last year, Hollywood writers, they went on strike. and they didn't want AI to be part of their, writing this thing. So, what do you think of that, and how long it's going to last?
It's a great question. I really don't know. This happens every time. This time it's AI, then it was streaming. There's always an issue, right? And sometimes they get really serious and it takes a year to solve it, and sometimes not. Frankly, the industry is at a point where it's so weakened that they're in danger. And I don't think they can afford a long strike. So I think they will solve it fairly quickly because they're already sort of walking on eggshells. Everything's changing so quickly. So we'll see. I don't know. All I hope is that during a strike, the writers keep writing. The storytellers keep telling the stories. That's what we need, in whatever form they show up. Yeah. Yes.
Can AI show it? I mean, when you think about storytelling, to me it connotes from the heart, authenticity, and the like. Is AI capable of empathy? Or are we doomed to a future of sterile storytelling?
Well, I don't think we're doomed to a story of cold or sterile. But I think that's another issue. Let's talk about AI for a minute. I've developed a rather funny relationship with my EA. I've given her a name Quinn, which is ChatGPT, right? She has a British accent. She's quite cheeky. And we have a lot of fun together. What I've learned about Quinn is that she's really smart. What I've also learned, and that she's actually, there's certain things that she's really good at. But she's not very good with humor. She's quite bad. And she's not very good with the ultimate in our humanity, which is empathy. I don't know if she's going to get better. Frankly, I don't think it's her job. I think that's what we're here for. I mean, I don't know that we can ultimately, being human is such a phenomenal, miraculous affair. And I don't know that I want machines to learn how to be us. Because at that point, why are we here? I really don't expect that. I expect they might get a little bit closer to it, but I don't think they'll ever be good poets. I don't think they'll be good sculptors, painters, or empaths. I don't think they'll have the capacity that we have for imagination, for empathy. I don't think joy and sorrow are their forte. I think they're there to expedite, accelerate our gifts and our dreams. And even that I have mixed feelings about, right? I am very grateful that I grew up when I grew up and had to learn social skills and how to public speak and how to write. I love language. I've always had a love affair with language and words. It's the music of the world to me. I don't know if, that they might edge up on that. But I think when you come right down to it, humanity is pretty hard to duplicate, true humanity. I'm not sure that's even the role or the desire, the expectation I would have for AI. I love AI. I'm still an amateur, but what I've experienced of it is pretty awesome. So it's a good question, though. Let's circle back on that. Anything else? Thank you again for having me.
I think we should give another round of applause for Gary. Sir, thank you for making it very special for all of us collectively here.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I want to thank everybody here, specifically Srikant, for arranging the wonderful thing here. Can I take 2 minutes? I know you have most time, but we had a very nice conversation out there. She asked me kind of what drives you. I know it's already late, but still I need to take 2 minutes to tell my personal story in a quick way. I grew up in southern part of India, a state called Kerala, with lovely parents. I could not have got better parents. I don't know, I was lucky to be in that parents, but hardly any money. When I was a kid, I walked a lot of time to barefoot to school. Practically no money at all. But again, the parental support I got was phenomenal. I was a good student, topped every class 1 to 10th. I was a class leader every class I went to. With a national scholarship, I went to do my engineering. I was selected when I was in pre-final engineering to go in Indian Air Force. Those days, there was no IT then. It was a very prestigious job. I was there. From there, I went on to study with the top school in India, Indian Institute of Science. I did aerospace engineer. So I'm an aerospace engineer. I served in Air Force for a certain number of years, 12 years. Then I came out of Air Force. I worked for a few companies. IBM brought me to US. Started living in Arizona for the past 24 years. Worked very, very hard for IBM. Built one of the largest IBM business practice for one of the largest customer. And just before 40 turned, I got arthritis. Maybe I worked without any break continuously. I had rheumatoid arthritis. Every week I had to go to a doctor's injection so I could walk. I thought life ended, but I said never give up. When I turned 50, I started my first marathon. There is a story behind it. My daughter was going for medical school. So I took a pledge saying that I'm going to run a marathon for you. I never done even 5 miles before that, because getting into MCAT is a tough thing to get in a school, medical school. This girl, when she was a 4-year-old, she wanted to go to become a doctor. That was her dream. I said, arthritis, infected parent, father. That's why I talk about family and life. I said, I have to do this. And 1 week prior to my run, I had a leg injury. So my wife, my children, they all said, please don't do it. But I said, if I had to die, I'd die on the field. I went on, finished my marathon. When I finished the finish line, I realized this girl is going to make it in med school. She has not even tasted a test. But that moment I had my call in my head saying that this girl is going to make it in medical school. She won with 3 gold medals undergrad. She was management school went and physiology school she went. She graduated. She eventually landed up in the same school for medical. She went on to become MD and PhD. She's a doctor. She's a surgeon. So where I'm coming from is from a person who need every week an injection. I finished 18 marathons. I ran in New York. I marked everywhere. And so this happened when I turned 50. 50 to 60 every 10 years in a row. Every morning I ran for 5 a.m. Every morning I ran. That's one part of the story. Second part of the story is I had my undergrad, master's, MBA, and all the stuff. I went to my doctorate. I did my doctorate after turning 50. Finished my doctoral degree. Then life changed. Then at 60, I launched a company, Digitech. One thing I realized, I was hearing the story from Gary, we all have purpose-driven life. So I'm a believer. You call a universe or God or whatever you call it. I'm Christian by faith, but I have no bias in any particular religion. I said, we are sent to the earth for a reason, and you have to make a difference. So 60 years and 1 week later started Digitech. And then I put a goal to myself, hey, this has to be very powerful. It has to make an impact. And in my life, the most influential person in my life was my mother when I was a kid. I still remember when her sacrifice, and we didn't have electricity. Electricity we had, but there is no natural gas. It's all firewood. So she used to get the smoke in her eyes, and I used to get that water coming out. So I get emotional when I think about my mother. She passed when she lived at a certain age. But then what impacted me was, God willing, if I get an opportunity, I serve women, children in particular. So I'm part of 2 organizations, non-profit, one in the US and Arizona State University, where we support 700,000 students. I'm part of another organization where I'm co-founded, I'm a board member, where we support several hundred girls go to school. These children are from lower status society, where their parents either abused or alcoholic, or even from very little social income or income in their families. And because I thought, while I didn't have any money, I had so much love in my life. I tell you, last thing, other day I was talking to my older brother. He goes through 3 dialysis in a week. He has a very severe situation. And when I'm calling, he's asking, how is your arthritis? Are you doing good? He's asking, how is Digitech is doing? Is company shaping well? Not a single question about his own personal life, his own dialysis situation where he's doing 3 times. When John's younger brother had an accident recent time, every other day I called John to check his well-being. He is the oldest sibling of 4, and he's the oldest brother. So I thought of my brother, how much he cares. John did it to make sure that his brother had a miraculous recovery. All I'm trying to say, the value of humans. A brother who is nearly dying, asking about my well-being, how the company is doing. So I have to make this company work. To make a multi-billion-dollar company, good proceeds, my CFO is here, he's tracking the accounting, should go to some children somewhere, make their life better. So every morning wake up with that hope. And everybody in Digitech, our customers, our future customers who are sitting in this room, will have a commitment. Because what Gary said, life is a celebration. We are so lucky to be alive. And I was sitting next to him, I said, hey, my bell curve in the second half, he said, stop, don't say that. And your life has just begun. Okay? And I believe in that. So I have a mission. As a human being, God has been so kind to me. I have to give back to the next and next and next. And I pray that I don't get carried away by any success. I don't get carried away by any kind of gains. I should be more humble and relevant to society at large. And then God brings people like him, like Dr. Ananda and all of you here, to make a difference and support our cause. So I'm very clear, I'm very focused to see that my life has some meaning. So I inherited this land or the life in a certain way, but when I depart, it should be better than what I inherited. Thank you.